outskirts of Kyoto, where the mist clings to cedar trees and the wind hums through half-forgotten shrines, there's a place locals refuse to speak of, the Valley of Echoes. They say voices whisper there after midnight, voices that don't belong to the living. Once, a man entered that valley with a heart full of hate. His name was Renji Takahata, a calligrapher known for his talent, and for the tragedy that took his wife Aiko. A year before the whispers began, Renji's home burned down in the dead of night. The flames swallowed everything, his brushes, his manuscripts, and Aiko. The townsfolk said it was an accident, a toppled lantern, nothing more. But Renji knew better. He had seen the neighbor Saito slipping away that night. The man had envied Renji's talent, coveted Aiko's beauty, and now both were gone. Renji's grief turned to something darker, and that darkness began to answer back. Do you want her back, or do you want him gone? Renji followed the whispers through forests no one dared to enter. There, at the edge of a forgotten shrine, the air smelled of sulfur and ink. Hanging charms had rotted away, leaving only red-stained stones and blackened paper seals. They called it Akuma no Jinja, the shrine of the demon. In the center stood a wooden statue, horns curling backward, fangs carved in eternal grin. Its eyes, two drops of obsidian that seemed to move in the flicker of his lantern. Renji knelt before it. I offer my soul for vengeance. Let Saito suffer as I have suffered. The wind died. The flame turned blue. Then a figure emerged from the shadows, not walking, but gliding. Skin like burnt paper, eyes glowing through a mask of smoke. Your soul is precious, calligrapher, but vengeance is a poor man's wish. I will grant it, and something more. Renji awoke the next morning in his home, untouched by fire, his inkpots neatly arranged, his brushes whole. For a moment, he thought it had been a dream, until he saw the letter on his table. It was written in his wife's handwriting. My beloved, he will burn as I did. That night, Saito's house caught fire. The same blue flames consumed everything, and when rescuers arrived, they found not ashes, but black feathers scattered through the soot. Renji smiled for the first time in a year. His wish had been granted. But when he looked in the mirror, his reflection was wrong. His eyes glowed faintly, like wet ink catching the light. Days turned to weeks. Renji's fame spread. His calligraphy now carried a haunting beauty that made noblemen weep and priests shudder. They said his brushstrokes moved on the paper, shifting like shadows alive. But Renji cared for only one thing, the second half of the Akuma's promise. Something more. One moonless night, he heard a knock on his door. When he opened it, Aiko stood there, her skin pale as rice paper, her eyes soft but hollow. You kept your promise, Renji. He fell to his knees, clutching her, sobbing. But her touch was cold, her pulse silent. The Akuma had brought her back, not alive, but bound. At first, Renji ignored it. He told himself she would heal. She just needed time. But each night, Aiko whispered in her sleep, a language older than any Renji knew. Her breath smelled of soot. Her tears stained the futon with ink. Then one morning, She painted something on his calligraphy wall, a sigil drawn in her own black blood. It was a contract seal, the mark of the Akuma. He owns us both now, Renji. You traded your soul, and I was part of it. Renji froze. The demon had twisted his wish. His vengeance had been bought not just with his soul, but hers. Desperate, Renji returned to the shrine. The statue was gone. Only the faint scent of burnt ink remained. He screamed into the forest. "Take me instead. Free her." From the darkness, the Akuma's voice rippled through the trees. You both offered what cannot be returned. You wanted revenge, and she wanted to save you. 2 pacts, 2 debts, 2 souls. Renji trembled. She made a deal too. The demon laughed, a sound like rusted bells underwater. She came to me first, the night before the fire. She begged for your life, offered her soul to spare you. I granted it, and then you came, offering yours for vengeance. The irony is delicious. The ground split beneath Renji's feet, smoke and feathers swirling around him. In that moment, he saw the truth. His vengeance and her love had both summoned the same evil. Renji stumbled home one last time. The house was empty, the ink pots shattered. Only his wife's final brush remained, dipped in black so deep it shimmered like oil. He sat before his scroll and began to write. Not for nobles, not for fame, but for escape. He wrote in his own blood, carving a prayer to erase their names from the Akuma's ledger, but before he could finish the last stroke, Aiko appeared beside him. Her voice was soft, almost human again. If you finish it, we'll both fade. No afterlife. No rebirth. Renji smiled faintly. Then at least, we'll be free. Together, they drew the final line. The ink bled through the floorboards, spreading into veins of darkness. The house trembled, then fell silent. When neighbors arrived the next morning, they found only 2 empty kimonos folded neatly on the tatami, and a single brush, still wet with ink, that never dried. They say if you visit the ruins of that home during a storm, you can still hear a brush scratching paper. Scholars claim Renji's final work, the Black Sutra, vanished that night, but fragments appear sometimes in antique shops, sealed in cursed scrolls. Collectors whisper that anyone who reads his words aloud begins to see shadows moving behind them, and hear a voice whisper, "Would you like to make a deal?" In Japan, they say no contract is more binding than one written in blood, and no love more tragic than the kind that calls the devil by name.